Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the show today. This is Night Owls for the whew, 7th of November. Wow, time is definitely flying. Hope you all are really doing well this morning. It's very gloomy, stormy weather for me again. But it's worse than that. I do have my coffee. I am sitting here with some friends. However, it's one of those mornings where I woke up and my wife was awake before I was, which is shocking. But beyond
Uh-oh.
that, I just kind of stumbled into the living room, right? And she put a cup of coffee in front of me, which is awesome. That's a good thing. The bad thing is she gave me a bagel and it's been sitting in my stomach like lead. You know how you have those mornings where you eat breakfast too early
Yeah.
and it just sits in there? Oh my God. It's one of those days. Anyway, hi Thunder.
Hello.
How are you?
Hello, hello. I am well. I
That's
am
good.
well.
That is good. Well is a good way to be. Now, we got a bit of
Coffee
craziness
in
to
front of
go
me, which
into
is awesome.
today,
That's a good thing.
unfortunately, but that's kind of the way it is, isn't it? But I did kind of give create a little bit of a primer on Mudflow. I'm just going to kind of give the general idea and show some photos. I didn't really have the time to put together like a complete presentation, though. I was kind of busy this week. I actually had to help a doctor put together a presentation for a symposium in Finland.
Mm.
It doesn't sound fun to me.
Finland.
Well, it's about heart stints.
Good
Yeah,
old Finland.
yeah. Well, the funny thing is this little city over the well, it's not even a city, but this town over the mountain here from me is actually the doctors in the hospitals over there. It's like a private hospital. They are the world leaders in heart stinting. It's weird, you know.
Interesting.
Yeah, just a little place, but hey, good for them, right?
I
Uh,
honestly think we've gone far too far with keeping people alive technology. I think as a civilization, we've become obsessed with life.
yeah,
Instead of living good lives, we're worried about living long lives, and that just sounds like hell to me. I think for most of the personally, and I had to watch my mother suffer through this. Most of the time, when you're in the phase of you have to get stints and things,
yeah,
you probably would have been better off just dying
maybe,
because your life's
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
go downhill hard from there. Most likely, not always, but most likely.
I agree with you. However, there is a caveat because I do every Monday, not today, right? I
Yeah.
have my classes on Monday are night, later on at the university, but my school stuff are doctors.
Hmm.
And because I don't know if you know this, but doctors they go in like on the morning of Monday, but they take the afternoon off. Well, at least here in Japan. So Monday's their half day, which is weird. You would think that would be their
Hmm.
full day, but nevertheless. So I have a bunch of doctors, and these guys are all real doctors, right? And
Hmm.
we have a lot of conversations, and of course, I always try to keep myself up to date with my students. So I will research things that I normally wouldn't, right?
Hmm.
So I've learned quite a bit from these guys not only in conversations but also in research. There are some technologies coming down the pipe that will allow us to live way into our hundreds very healthily. So
I don't
if
want
I'm
to.
healthy and 150 years old, which I won't be, I'll be dead in 20 years, I'm sure. But if you're healthy going into 150 years old and you're spry and all that kind of stuff, that's okay, right?
I mean, I guess, but I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, well, these guys are pretty, and the technology I've seen that they're working on, these guys are shooting for like 300 plus years, is what these doctors are thinking.
I would rather have some form of technology to upload my a consciousness
Oh, that would be ultimate. Yeah,
depository.
that would be the
Yeah, then you
ultimate.
wouldn't
Yeah.
have to worry about aging. Well, I mean, I guess your hardware could age, but
Well, I
you had
suppose
the
if
consciousness to change it and fix it, it wouldn't be that big a deal.
true, but and I suppose if you're a Christian, you kind of already believe that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So but we're neither here nor there. But I agree with the general concept, though. What's the point of living longer if it's just suffering, horrible suffering? But You last as long as you know. I say I'll be dead in 20 years. I'll probably be the sucker that sticks around for 40. Oh,
You'll somehow outlive your Asian wife.
yeah, right. Ridiculousness. Poor girl. She probably lived 20 years without me.
Yeah. Nah, she'll remarry.
I don't know. She might. I would, of course, tell her to do so, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know. By that time, she'll be really, really old because I'm 50. You never know. But actually really healthy. I'm just kind of, but my family's a toss up. It's like half of them live to 90,
Yeah.
100. The other half die in their 60s, 70s. So I don't know. I don't know.
Mine's the same way. My on my father's side, there you can get up to 100. On
Oh
my
yeah.
mother's side, you're lucky to make it through 60.
Yeah,
So,
no, my side, it's both of them are like that. But my mom and dad's family have both examples in quite even numbers. I don't know what it is. The simple fact of the matter is, when you get in your 60s, you're going to have some health problem. Everyone seems to, right? If
mm,
you can get through whatever that health problem is, you're probably good for another 20 years,
hmm
15, 20 years. That's kind of the way it seems to work, right? But I get your point, and you're not wrong. However, Uh, oh goodness gracious! You know how hard and boring it is to take Japanese and translate it into an interesting way into English to be done in a Swedish environment. Excuse me, a Finnish environment.
that sounds miserable.
Yes. Well, the good thing is, I can get by in the Scandinavian, so I try to add a little bit of cultural humor in the English for the Finnish. that's that's top notch right there. That's where you earn your money. Yeah. That's
Yeah, Finnish is a language much like Hungarian that just simply should not exist, but it does. It does.
Yeah, well, the Scandinavian languages, I think the worst one is Danish, actually. I
Really?
certainly don't think I could speak. I mean, if I lived there, I'd probably be fine, but I can read and write, right?
Hmm.
Which is mainly my thing. I read and write stuff. I don't necessarily speak it. If I lived there, I'd probably pick it up pretty quick, I imagine, though. But the
Yeah.
Danish is the weird one, though. Of all those Scandinavian stuff, it's pretty weird. Yeah, and
Hmm.
the Dutch is the easiest. I mean, if you yeah, I challenge everyone here, go find something Dutch on the internet. YouTube, I'm sure, is full of it, and just listen to it. Sit down and listen. I guarantee you'll understand 60, 70% of it.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. It's I would give you that language challenge to you, but nevertheless, health and all that. I got a crazy stormy day. It's almost as if a hurricane was coming in. Isn't it November?
It is.
What
Last
the
I checked.
what the hell? They never tell me anything anyway. There could be a typhoon about to drop on top of me, and I wouldn't know. I'm always the last to know. Why are dads always the last to know? What's up with that? Shouldn't we be the
Oh, because
first
they're
to know?
usually occupied elsewhere.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we're just busy. And my wife, I'm sure your wives are the same way. You guys tell me if you what you think. But she always says, "I told you." It's a lie. I have a fantastic memory.
Yeah, I think they lie about that too.
They
Because
do.
um, I get told all the time, "We had a conversation about this." I'm like, "No, we didn't. If we had a conversation about it, I'd remember it."
Yeah. Now it's possible we just were ignoring them. It's possible.
Well, they do talk a lot.
They do, and we
So,
kind of just owned it out, and they kind of threw it in there. When we were just
uh huh,
you know,
uh huh.
um,
Yep.
I had that problem just yesterday. She was, um, you're gonna laugh because you said this before, but I really enjoy Mr. Carlson's laboratory, where he talks about radio technology and repair and electronics and stuff like that. I enjoy it. It drives my wife nuts. It's so boring from her point of view, which I think is fascinating. But I was watching one of those. She chatted about something. I was like, oh. She came to give me a kiss for some reason. I was like, oh. And then I kind of looked around and she was gone. I was wondering where she was. And then 2 hours, an hour and a half, she came back. And of course, she was at Jazzercise. She had told me she had left, but I didn't really hear it. I was occupied. I was learning about electronics.
Electronics, huh?
Yeah. Well, it's one of my weak areas, so I always try to strengthen the weak areas, you know?
Yeah.
Do you like electronics?
Yeah, of course. I for many years worked as a appliance repair tech, and then as a managing, basically like an office manager for an appliance repair company. Um, so yeah, I'm very, very, what's the word?
Versed.
There you go. That's one in electronics. And the one thing about electronics that most people don't understand, especially technicians, need to understand is you don't need to understand the ins and outs of how the particular parts work. You just need to know that if you put this part with this part, it'll do this thing.
Oh, see, I'm the
Because
opposite.
somebody very intelligent came before you and made sure that that transformer does what it's meant to do, that that capacitor does what it's meant to do, that that diode and these other little things that are on circuit boards
Hmm.
are they do transistors do what they're meant to do. You don't need to necessarily know, and most, by the way, very very few people do know how circuit boards work.
Hmm.
Most people just know that they do. Even people in the field who design them, they don't have any idea how they work. They just
Yeah,
do.
yeah. I
Um,
must know how it works, though. You don't understand.
but in order to tinker, you don't need to. If you're trying to repair something or create something or whatever, all you need to really know, thanks to you know centuries now at this point of people tinkering with electronics of all different kinds, that if you do this, this works. Now, if you're in like research for something like electronic engineering or whatever, yeah, then you need to know the function, like why it functions that way, the whys. But if you're just tinkering, just goofing around, don't get caught up in the malaise of it. Just see what works. Put
Wow,
two and two together, trial and error.
you really don't understand my brain at all.
Oh yeah, you're autistic.
Yeah, yeah, it's impossible. But the thing with it is though, is that helped me a lot, and the reason why I like Mr. Carlson's laboratory in particular is because he does stuff talking about circuit board as well, and he's a professor or something, right? But so he it's over the top. However, what he does a lot of is rebuild and repair, and in incredible 3 hour and a half detail, 100-year-old radios, and understanding how those tubes and capacitors and transistors and all that stuff work in the in the meta
Yep.
helped me understand the micro of the modern circuitry a lot. It was very,
Oh
because
yeah.
it's the same thing, they've just shrunk it down, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah. Once
that's
you
cool.
once you get in electronics, there's not too many ways to crack that egg. Uh, Electronics work under the laws of electricity,
Yep.
the laws of the universe. So once you get the basic rudimentary stuff of it, it's pretty simple to figure out what's going to where.
Yeah.
To the point where I was, unless it was an extremely complicated machine, most simple machines and most appliances are very simple machines actually.
Hmm.
Um, I could figure out how to wire as long as I knew basically what each uh, end of the circuit was meant to do. So as long as I knew that, I could figure out how to wire it. That's something most people can't even do with a schematic in their hand with a wiring diagram
Right. No,
because
those
it's
are
just
confusing. Yeah.
yeah, they're
You have to
confusing. But
study
but
and
if you can
learn how
get
to read it.
away from them, if you can get away from them and just look at the board and then look at the wiring harness, it's pretty easy to figure out. It might take a little while depending on how complicated the harness system is or the board is, but it's pretty straightforward once you figure it out. And
Mhm.
that's something that you just kind of learn through doing it.
No, I imagine.
Um,
Yeah. Hands-on practical application.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it takes
No,
some time, but it's an interesting skill to have because
I think so.
now because I'm able to diagnose things, one of my biggest skills in that job was diagnostics. I'm very good at it. I usually don't have to take something apart, an appliance anyway. As long as I know how that machine operates, I can probably tell you what's broken in it if it's just not doing whatever or it's making a noise or whatever.
Yeah.
So I was always really good at that. That's why I became the manager and would help the guys. They'd call in and ask if they couldn't figure something out, and I would help them over the phone. But the reason I'm able to do that is because once you've seen these things operate enough, except for some of the more modern stuff, which they've tried to reinvent the wheel and they failed at
Yeah,
horribly. Modern appliances suck compared to those old ones from 30 years ago. But once you know how something functions, or you got the basic idea of what each part does, like a transmission in a washing machine, or
sure.
a motor, or a gearbox, or whatever.
That applies
Um,
universally, right?
yeah, it's pretty well universal. Once you know that this thing is a stand-in for this thing, you got it. So that's why a lot of people who aren't really that intelligent, when you actually break it down, like give them an IQ test or whatever,
Yeah.
but they're mechanically inclined. It's because the laws, our machines run off of the same laws that the whole universe runs off of. So once you know the rules, it's pretty easy to figure out the game,
Hmm. Yeah.
and that's really all they're doing. They understand the rules well enough that they can figure out the game, even if they couldn't do that in any other field.
No, no, I agree with that 100%. I don't. I mean, I don't put much weight in IQ tests anyway, and I have a radical IQ, but I think it's deeper. I don't think we understand consciousness and the application of intelligence yet. I just don't think we're there, right? The IQ doesn't. It doesn't. All IQ tells you is how much you've actually studied and how quickly you can retrieve it, and that's all it's
Well,
doing, right?
there's most of the tests that might be true, but there's ones that require nothing more than looking at shapes.
Yeah, no,
Like
no,
you
I
can
know.
find
They have the big
IQ
ones, yeah.
tests that are just shapes and colors, which I would suck at because I'm colorblind. But the rest of it is just shapes, and if they just grade you on how fast you're able to see patterns.
Well, when I that
Hey,
no,
baby.
that's but I don't really put much weight in IQ. But I don't know. It sounds like things have changed, but because when I was a kid, they kind of just gave us those like hour-long IQ tests in school anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, we all
Yep.
had to take them, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so
I
they're still
used to
doing
I
that.
used
Okay.
to infuriate my teachers because my IQ was really high, but I was so bored in class all the time that, that I never really participated unless it was something that interests me. So like if we were talking about ancient Egypt, I was all in. I'd talk about that for hours with the teachers and stuff. But if we were talking about like I don't know any other boring subject, I would just not care and not
Yeah.
engage at all.
Well, that is a
And they
general
knew it
problem
wasn't
with
that I
yeah.
was. Yeah, they knew it wasn't a lack of ability. I didn't care. I don't care about what you're talking to me about. I'm not going to engage with it. And then one of the other problems was is I was I was an asshole. Let's put it that way. And I would just tell my
I
teachers,
still am.
I'm not gonna do this work if I don't need to. I told them that my whole time in school. I'd come in and get A's on the tests, and then be like, okay, well I already know that, so there, I'm not doing it. Didn't care if they gave me detentions and stuff for it. Just didn't care. I'm not
Right.
gonna do it because I don't need to. And that's one of the reasons why I hate modern schooling, because they give you so much busy work
They
and it's a
do.
waste of time. And in all honesty, really smart people, school is a waste of time. You can learn so much faster on your own without nonsense that once you get basic stuff like reading and writing and basic math, you
Arithmetic.
probably would be better off outside of a school setting in being in learning. Most really intelligent people, I think.
Yeah, no, I think there are different. The students can't be handled universally, but
Yeah,
gigantic bureaucracies can't do that. But
exactly.
back to the subject before we get on today's news, though, one of the things I find is really interesting because I take time to, I try to find time to study, combustion engines, physics, whatever. I try to know as much as I can. I know it's a futile effort but I enjoy doing that. However, the interesting thing I find is how little things have actually modernized. If you look at radios or engines or whatever any kind of technology you have in your life, it hasn't changed much over the past 100 years at all. It's shocking how little it's changed. There's been a few, modern updates to the engine we use. The last one the really good one I can remember was the diesel engine, which came out
Mm.
during the war. That was kind of a long time ago. But that was an actual innovation, right? But the a lot of things just haven't changed. And if you think about it, you're like, well, why not? Things are certainly more modern now. Why haven't they changed? Well, because they're not trying to actually innovate. All they're trying to do is make it cheaper and more profitable. And there's
Yes.
your problem. Yeah. They are actually holding us back. These big, gigantic businesses.
Yes.
Unfortunately, it's true. Yeah.
I mean, when you look at something like everybody in their house, everybody right now has one in their house, guaranteed. Electric engine or electric motor. Sorry,
Oh, sure.
uh, the
Many of them.
electric motor has not really changed fundamentally in over 100 years.
More, the
Over a
19th
hundred years.
century.
Yeah, it's been basically the same since it was invented by a couple different people, but I'd say Tesla was the one who had the biggest input into it. His version of it is the one we still use, and that's insane to me. Like, think of any other industry that hasn't changed or industry standard that hasn't changed radically in over 100 years. That's nuts to me, but that's where it is. They just can't. There's not much more you can do to it. It's a near perfect design. Now there are other I keep saying engines, electric motors out there, newer ones, but they're not widely used because they're either too expensive or they're too complicated or they just can't get market saturation. But I don't know that they're better. Honestly, that basic design with the coil and the rotor and the stator, it's just I can't think of how any way you could do it better. And that's one of the reasons why nobody ever really has. It's
Yeah.
basically the same thing.
Well, you know that because you have to take approach from different way. You can't try to just modernize that thing. You need to find another way to do it in a better
Yep.
way. And they used to be, in 100 years, 150 years ago, or even the past 200 years, that 19th century period, there was a lot of that going on. People
Yeah.
really were trying to innovate. But we haven't had that because we kind of got in the late industrial revolution that we're kind of still in. We got stuck in this pattern of just making it cheaper, a
Yeah.
more efficient economics, right? And that's a problem. And Dave, I don't prescribe to that idea because the mind is not limitless. Matter of fact, you only have about 500 years worth of data storage space.
Yeah.
So it's the attic of the mind. Interesting idea, but it's not
You can't.
practical.
No human being can even store an actual encyclopedia's worth of knowledge. Your brain, like I mean, a big one. Your brain can't do it. You would literally short out. Basically, there's just not enough memory space in there.
No,
And that's a big problem. That's one of the biggest problems with like the concept of immortality is you would eventually forget things that
no, you
at
forget
one point
everything.
in your life
Yeah,
would be unbelievably dear and important to you. But by the time you're in your 200s, unless those things are still around with you, you wouldn't remember them.
yeah, fair enough. That is interesting, but it's a cool idea, Dave. We're just kind of rattling on about various ideas and things here. It's not a big deal. We are going to start getting into the actual meat of today, though. Are you ready?
Oh yeah.
All right, here we go. All righty, so let's come over here and oh yeah, let's start there. All righty, bring this up. And oh, I got to do that. And here we go. All righty. Now, you guys know I like to start night owls talking about board games and stuff. And it should tell you that I've been doing this what 2.5 years, and I haven't exhausted it even close.
Mm.
How big an actual culture board games are. Now, this right here, I brought up because I think it's an interesting conversation. Of this is kind of this conversation today. It has a lot to do with the evolution of board games. I think Thundero. Now,
Mm.
this is Kickstarter is going on right now. Still got a week left. As you can see, it's almost at $2 million. Yeah, that's a lot. Okay.
That's a bit. Yeah.
And of course, this is through Disney, I guess. I don't know what the affiliate they're using, but it's Marvel, so it's definitely either them or they've licensed someone to do it. I didn't really pay attention to that. Da, da, da. Yeah, it looks like someone bought the rights. Okay, fine. Either way, it doesn't matter. So here's the thing. Now, this game right here, Marvel Dice Throne, is the current big hot ticket that everyone's talking about in the board gaming world. They're on and on about it, like, oh my God. And it does look kind of cool, and I'll get into that in a minute, but I want to give a little bit of backstory on it before I come and show off this actual game. And what I mean by evolution is over the past 30 years, or even if you go into the European stuff before that, before it came into the States, you have seen an evolution of mechanics in board games. Now, when a lot of us were young, or when your parents were younger, the basic mechanic that you had in the game was roll the dice and move, right?
Mm,
Aside from something like a chess type or a checker type game, which are more the ancient style. So you roll your dice and you move, and then something happens, right? But in modern mechanics in board gamings, this is a place that we've actually seen innovation in the board gaming world, because you've had things like not only do you roll your dice to move, but now you'll roll the dice, use those dice, and apply them in different places. So you roll the dice once, and then you have all these numbers or faces, and of course you'll see here in a minute how much it has actually evolved on that. But then you take those dice and you use them as some manner of currency in the game, or some manner of application in the game. That's an innovation, right? You have things like the deck building game, which is part of this game as well. And deck building was a just fantastic idea. I think Dominion's the one it kind of gets credit for, although I do think there was a game before that. But most people think of Dominion when they think of deck building and the origins. But deck building is very simple. You start off with a very simple deck, a hand of cards, usually about 10 or 12. Everybody has that same amount, and as you play your hand, you have certain amount of cards that allow you to apply something, whether it be a tax or building or what have you. And then you have a certain amount of money cards that allow you to buy other cards to build your deck. And as the game carries on, your deck becomes stronger, and you try to have cards that will let you get rid of weaker decks, so you get the most efficient type of deck you have. Deck building. Et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to get into every mechanic, but we have seen some innovation here in cool ways, and I love deck building games. This game is applying several mechanics into one thing, and I think it's interesting. And I want to take you see how it's just popping up here. This game is making boku money, dude. This might hit 3.5 million, dude. Anyway, let's get into here. Now we have a game here called Dice Masters. Now, I own some of this. I didn't go crazy. Some people went absolutely mad and spent hundreds of dollars on this Thundero. But
oh my.
yes, but I definitely have a couple sets, and my wife and I and my kids, I played with them. But the idea here is you're collecting dice. The whole game is dice, and you build your deck of dice that you're going to apply, and you have to think about it because you want to have be able to do things consistently, so you're not going to have a Spider-Man dice and the Hulk dice and Wolverine dice, and you're not going to do that. You kind of tighten yourself up, and you're going to have a Hulk set, or you're going to have a Spider-Man set, and you're going to focus, right? And
Mm,
this was actually quite a fun game. I understand why it became so addictive for people, and they made mad money off of this. But it's just using dice in a very different way, and it was cool. Here is another application where they've manipulated the dice to the nth degree. These dice not only do they have numbers on them, they have attack or defend or activating powers with in concert with these cards you have here with Star Wars Destiny, another absolutely epically awesome, fun dice game.
mm,
It really, really is fun, right? I love this game, but once again, I don't kind of lose my mind, and I'm not the Magic the Gathering guy that goes spends $10,000 on a deck. I'm not that dude,
right.
right?
Yeah,
Um,
that's madness.
it is, but these games have that effect on people, right? These twos I'm mentioning, but here you see that here we have two examples of games that have really taken how you can use dice to an incredible level, right? But another game that comes to my mind, of course, is Marco Polo here. Now, Marco Polo is actually my wife's favorite game, and I love it too. It's good fun. It's won a ton of awards because it's an amazing game. Basically, in the beginning of each round, you roll your dice, whatever, because each person has their own color, right? And
Mm-hmm.
there are some like generic dice that everybody can get. There's black ones there. And you have whatever the number on the dice is, and as you're going through the round, you could put the dice on different spots to get different things. Obviously, the higher dice will give you more of whatever that is, whether it be wood or gold or spices or what have you, whatever the gameplay is. And this one, you're moving through the map as well, and you're trying to set up trade routes. Marco Polo and his family, right? But this was it's probably my favorite application of roll the dice and then use them as resource. It's my favorite version of that. However, this game right here is doing something very, very interesting, I think, because what you do in this game is you buy sets. So, say you buy the Spider-Man box, or the Black Panther box, or the Captain Marvel box, or the Thor box, or Doctor Strange box, or whatever. Each box comes with everything you need for that character. So this is a legacy type of game instead of a collectible one, right?
Right.
And then it's a head-to-head game. Now, I think I saw here they were thinking about how to do like a Royal Rumble or everybody versus everybody thing for more players. The general idea is a head-to-head game, and what they've added here is you got the dice, which you roll, which have. Let me come down here and show you what the dice look like. They had a nice little animation here. Where is it? Maybe I passed it already. You see all the care. There it is. So these dice have numbers and they have different things that they'll show, like a defense or a power activation or an attack animation or what have you. And you take your dice and you apply them to the cards you choose to play, because you have cards and you can play those cards. They can give you bonuses, or you can put them on the board and they'll allow you to do different things with them. And so they have that, the Marco Polo, Dice Masters, Star Wars Destiny, many, many others application, but they also have added the card aspect of it. So what you have is a dice application game and a deck building game put together. And now it's freaking awesome, dude. It's freaking awesome. I must own this game. And as you can see, they have many characters, and they're going to unlock more, of course. But look at all the different characters you can get right now, and they're of course talking about stuff that's on the Kickstarter that are exclusive. They're gonna, I think, it's another 4 characters are coming or something like that in the next few days. But I just want to take a little bit of time and talk about how board games have evolved really quite interestingly to juxtapose to the conversation we just had, right?
Hmm.
But does something like this sound interesting to you?
Not really. And
Okay.
the only reason is because it's Marvel, and
Well,
I just
yeah, it doesn't look crazy woke though. There's a couple of Marvel games, board games I've passed on because they were clearly woke. But if you look at this, these are just the standard version of the characters. There's nothing going on here. Loki's a bit younger, but it's still an older, skinny Loki in the artistic choice. It's standard Thor, standard Black Panther, Scarlet Witch, Captain Marvel, Black Widow. They've not, well, although Spider-Man is Miles Morales, I guess. But I don't really see much here, and there's a lot of alternates, and who knows how many characters there will be by the end, right? Because the next seven
mm,
days of this campaign are going to be the big ones. Is when they start dropping their real big unlocks. If you're a Kickstarter person, you know what I mean. Cannonball would be cool. I agree. And Marco Polo. If you don't own that game, let me go back and show it. You must own this game. It's not expensive. It's gorgeous production, and it is absolutely fantastic game. I love it. Like I said, it's my wife's favorite game. This is a game that there's so many strategies you can take. There's so many different ways you can try to win by. It's not limiting, and that's important for a board game. But nevertheless, anyway, I've kind of done my little spiel. But if you're a Marvel fan, you might be interested in this. Like I said, it's not horribly woke. It's just a
Well,
straightforward
yeah, but
fighting game.
regardless, I mean, to be the downer of it, it's still Marvel, which means it's still Disney.
Fair enough.
So
Fair enough.
I'm good. I'm good on giving them any money. And it's a shame because it does look like it could be fun to play.
I like
But
the
ah,
I like the application of a deck builder and a dice builder, or not a builder, a dice applier, in one game. I don't know if I've seen it before. I probably have, to be fair. But it just, if you kind of go through this page here, and by the way, it's called Marvel's Dice Throne. But if you go through this page and you look at the videos and reviews and how to play type of stuff, it really looks tight, dude. It looks tight.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I
And
like the idea. It sounds like it could be fun. Obviously, I support anything with my boy Thor in it.
yeah.
But I just couldn't do it. I couldn't bring myself to do it.
Well, the last Marvel thing I got was a little cutie, I guess in the West they call them Chibi style
Yeah,
characters. And it's like a little adventure type of game. I bought that from my school though. I didn't buy that for me particularly. Because it's cute stuff. The little kids like it. And, once a month or once every 6 weeks, I will have kind of a game day. Instead of doing a lesson, I'll do a game. But I try to make sure the game has some educational value, right? Obviously. And
yeah,
that game, there's so many different different kinds of English you must use to play the game. I thought it'd be fun. I haven't got the game yet; it's still in production, but I think it's going to be fun for the school. This one, no, this has not for the school. If I buy this, it's for me. So anyway, I'm done. Let's
he's
move on.
done.
Let's move on. Let's see here. Oh my God. Oh, this thing, dude.
Travis Scott's girlfriend Kylie Jenner breaks silence on Astro World deaths. We weren't aware. Well, that's funny because I saw plenty of video where he's standing up on a podium way above everybody else, just staring at the guy,
Yeah.
one of the dead people, as they're being carried out.
These Albanian girls like the black Africans, don't they?
Apparently,
Yeah, that's cool.
I
Good
don't
for
find
them.
them attractive at all. I don't know why anybody does. I do not think they're attractive. They just
Um,
they look
Kylie,
trashy,
I
and they are
don't,
trashy.
I don't know all of them. I only know, I actually don't know them at all. I've seen her before, and I've seen the Kanye's girl. What's that one
Yeah.
called?
Well, it's his ex girl. I think they're divorced now or getting divorced.
Whatever, that one, the fat ass one. Um,
Kim.
this girl, she's more fashion modeling in her size, and she can be pretty. The problem is they're so vapid and horrible humans, you can't hold any attraction to them. It's impossible.
Yes.
This girl particularly, she is a nasty piece of work. You think Paris Hilton's bad? This girl said, "Hold my beer." I mean, seriously. And Paris is like old money, right? But so yeah, I don't care about that anyway. That's not the point of the story. But this Travis Scott guy, I don't know him. He's very popular because he does Fortnite stuff. I guess my son knows who he is. But there was a concert, and you probably all know the story. And a bunch of people died because they're getting trampled and stuff. And this story, I saw a lot of stuff come out. And the interesting thing for me in this story was he did know something was going on, right? Because he
Yep.
stopped the show and he said, "Hey, hey, help this guy out," which is good. But to be fair, I've been on stage my whole life. And when you're standing in a crowd of this size, which I've been in front of a crowd this size, you can't see or hear anything. All right. So he maybe he thought the situation was done and he just continued on because the real anger here is that he continued the show after the incident, and him not knowing that someone was dead. He might not have known someone was dead. He might have thought it was solved. because clearly someone told him something was going on, and he stopped it and he tried to deal with it. So I don't know how much I blame Travis Scott for this, to be honest with you. But the thing that, and I want you to give your opinion here in a second, but the thing that caught my attention from all the coverage of this is how many people in the vicinity of the problem were sitting there with their phones doing TikToks or Instagram photos in front of dead people with their doing the stupid ass peace symbol with their tongue sticking out. That bothered me. Cause like, yeah, look at this dead person. I'm taking a photo in front of him. Yeah, baby. Yeah. I mean, and no one gave a shit. No one helped anybody. They just let him die right in front of them, just walking by. I mean, since when did America become China? I mean, what the fuck?
Um, we have a serious problem all over the world where people have become observers. They're not active. They're not. They don't do. I can't stand it. I'm going to a big concert around here, the beginning of next month, 2 days before my birthday,
Yeah.
and I just know I'm going to get pissed off looking at all the people on their phones recording and like, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah, watch the show, man.
live for Christ's sake.
watch the damn show.
What are you doing?
Well, it's like
That's a big problem. These people they're cybernetic zombies, and they don't know how to live anymore. It's one of the reasons I hate having a cell phone. The only reason I have one is to appease my wife because she's afraid if I get stuck somewhere, I won't be able to call somebody for help. But if it wasn't for her, if I was single, I wouldn't have one. I wouldn't have a smart. I wouldn't have any cell phone.
Yeah, I don't
Period.
need that fucking thing, dude.
I can't. I see what it does to people. Like, it turns them into zombies is the best word for it.
Yeah.
They don't have the ability to live in a moment. They don't have the ability just to live and function without it. Yeah, it is nice to have for, looking things up if you're out and about or whatever. That is nice. That's a convenient feature. But I don't know. There's just something about having that thing there that just turns most people anyway, especially younger people, into this like weird.
Yeah.
They have this like
It's weird.
malaise about them. They don't seem to be able to do anything but observe, and they don't know how to take care of themselves or to think for themselves.
No, it's
And I know
zombie land, you're right. And I agree,
for a
Dave.
fact
Die for
this has
metal.
gotten worse.
Definitely a way to do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
This has gotten way worse since smartphones have become a thing because I am of the generation where when I was in high school, cell phones were just starting to really catch on. And some, people were starting to get them all over. And then once I got out of high school, I was a young adult when they really started to become, a thing in America, especially where I'm at in America. And they were already in the big cities, but they were really starting to spread out, and you could actually get coverage and actually talk to people. So I've literally watched as the generation after me, or I guess still technically my generation, but the younger version of it, just became enthralled to these machines to the point now where they can't function without them, some of them. And then you'll see stuff like this, like you'll see all over the internet, people just stand by and watch as people get the absolute hell kicked out of them. And they don't say nothing. They don't try to get involved. If anything, they encourage it just so they can record it.
Yeah,
and
it's weird, dude. You see this all the time, don't you? It's creepy. Like we had not only did you see the lady get beat up on the New York subway the other day, a
yeah,
week ago, right? And no one did anything. I mean, I saw the video on that, and she probably was, flapping her lips. She probably deserved it.
yeah,
However, there's no way that if I was standing next to that guy and he hauled off and cold cocked a woman like that, that he wouldn't be on the floor. There's no way. And I wouldn't even
yeah.
hit him. I
Well,
just put him down. But
there's
I'm just saying, there's
just
no way.
recently,
It's impossible.
my wife and I were at the grocery store, and this young guy comes around, and I'm guessing this was his sister because the way he was joking with her, and he was like being real aggressive, like to the point where I stopped and just stared at him for a minute. And my wife, I don't even think she realized what I was doing. I don't think he even saw me, but
He failed you.
I was uncomfortable, like how aggressive he was being about something. Like he didn't she didn't grab something he wanted or something stupid. And I just had a feeling that was going to be more than just him getting angry. Like, I don't care. People can get angry all they want, but when it becomes physical, that's a different story. and I was
Yeah.
just some reason something told me just to stay there for a second, just to make sure, because it looked like this guy was about to slap the living hell out of this girl, and he never did. And eventually, it chilled out, and I just walked away. But I just don't get that. I don't get these people
Yeah.
who just watch. They
It's
just watch
weird.
as other people get the living hell kicked out of them. Now, sometimes people deserve to get the living hell kicked out of them. Don't get it twisted. Sometimes even
To a
ladies
point.
deserve to get the
Yeah.
living hell kicked out of them. Well, I say ladies, females. Ladies never do. But that doesn't mean we should just allow it to happen, because
No. Yeah. Yeah.
we live in a world where there are a lot of very deranged people wandering the streets, and it's getting more and more dangerous, it seems, as the years go on, at least in our perception. The reality is it's actually getting safer in most places, but our perception
Crime
of our
wise, yeah.
world is that there's more danger than ever. Now that's another problem with the damn phones, because people are never disconnected from the worst possible stuff, right? They never get to just exist without being connected to everything else. And what sells, unfortunately, is not positivity, it's negativity. So you have a lot of people who were attacking Travis Scott for this. Now, I have no idea what he did or did not know. I think it's a little strange that he says he didn't know anything when he stopped his show for a second and was staring right at a guy as they were carrying him out dead.
Yeah, no, he knew something was going on.
Yeah, that's
But
just not
I
true.
don't
Why are
think
you
he
lying
knew the
about that?
extent. Yeah, I don't think he knew the extent, though. I mean, I've been on stages like that. I
Yeah.
understand. You don't know. You don't know, dude. You can't see or hear anything.
But that whole festival, especially that part of it where the people started falling over dead, was weird. It was some weird occult shit going on at that festival. If you look at the symbolism and some of the particulars of the songs when things were happening, like one of the big stage things was like what looked like a portal that said "See you on the other side," right as people were dying. Like it's
Yeah, it's
just
weird.
weird stuff.
And he is weird. He uses a lot of symbolism, and I
Yeah,
don't really get his fame. I mean, I don't want to take it away from him. Good on it, good on you. But he's not an attractive guy. He's not particularly good rapper.
yeah.
But yet he hooked into the Fortnite stuff and the young kids is what he did, which is clever. Or his agents were clever. But yeah, no, I don't really put much blame on him. This was the situation, and more of the attitude. You know, like a couple weeks ago, we had a lady get raped on the subway in New York again, and people watched and did nothing. I don't understand that. I mean, I understand the fear of conflict and the fear of getting hurt or something like that, but especially as men, I mean, it doesn't matter if you're going to win. That's
No,
not the point. That's not
I'm
the
not
point.
like I think it's pretty obvious I'm not like some hardcore feminist. I don't even consider myself a chauvinist, because I'm okay sometimes with a woman getting what she deserves.
Well, she
However,
swings her hands, man. I mean,
yeah, if
that's
she's
over
physical,
right.
then hey, that's what happens happens.
That's right.
I wouldn't step in if a small guy started swinging at a big guy either, because listen, you got to learn your lesson one way or the other. But that being said, there's still part of me that knows that, okay, say a woman does swing, a guy swings, and she's done. Some men aren't done, right? They don't have
Yeah,
that,
that's a
for
problem.
whatever reason. They don't have that switch to just shut off, and they'll beat her to death or beat her within an inch of her life. And that's when somebody should stop it, right? That's another problem we have in our society.
We
They'll just let
usually
people get
do.
beat to death. Yeah, they'll
Yeah,
just let people get beat to death.
yeah, that's not
Uh,
good, dude. You got to get in there and then kind of break it up and try to
yeah,
calm it down. But the thing that I think men in particular have to understand, and this is really man's point. It doesn't
yeah,
matter how much the feminists scream about they don't need no man. It doesn't matter about any of that, because in the end, who has to take the responsibility? Who always has to
yes,
take the responsibility? Men do. Men do. Doesn't matter
yes, sir.
what they say. In the end, we're the ones that are responsible, no matter what. They can go on and on. You could be nice and let them go on. That's fine. Go right ahead. Don't create conflict unnecessarily. However, in the end, you are responsible. You're always going to be responsible. This is the
I
reason why
think
we get heavier court case penalties, and punishments
yes.
and all of that. Because in the end, everyone knows, even the feminists, men must be the one responsible.
I think our current affluence, well, one is ending, and two has created a society of people, especially young ladies, who have no gratitude,
Oh,
who
there's
have
no
very
respect going on
little,
at all. That's right. Yeah.
none at all. They just don't have gratitude for the things that they've been given,
No.
typically by other men that have no relation to them, but they were just doing a job. Whether it be just electricity in your house, plumbing in your house, just simple basic things that we take as basic and without thinking about. It took a lot of work by typically men, some women too, but usually it's men, to make happen. And you're not grateful for that. And where I'm going with this is that lack of gratitude leads to aggression from both sexes. So you see these women, they become very self-centered, very selfish, very narcissistic. They're not thankful, they're not appreciative. And then you have men who resent that because some of these men work really hard to build this world and keep it going, and they get treated like crap. So it's a microcosm, it's a cauldron of bad, of negativity, all brewing together. And I think what's going to happen very soon here, next 10, 20 years, maybe 30, is nature's going to correct because it always does,
It does.
and
That's
we'll
right.
return to a society that's far more grateful because we're going to live through something far worse
Hey,
than COVID was.
don't jump the gun on my mud flood. What are you doing? Hey. But yeah, actually, you remember a couple of months ago, a month ago, I don't know, it was some time ago, where I went to Tokyo. And I think I had to cancel the show, or no, I actually took the week off. I think it was.
Yeah.
All right, I had to go to Tokyo. Well, I was going to a symposium, I guess, or lecture, of various, people from different university departments, right? And the whole symposium was on on one concept, and different academics opinions on it was the idea. And the idea is the current population problem in Japan, reproduction problem in Japan. And I spoke at this symposium. And so I'm sitting in front of a room of I don't know, 1,000 people, something like that. A lot of people, big old huge auditorium thing, and talking to them. And they were a mix of people, but it was mainly college kids, right? Tokyo college kids was mainly the population of the audience. But and I would made several little points, but one of my main points that I got to was your responsibility to your culture, to your nation, to your society. And
Mm.
you would be so, I was shocked. This is Japan. I got a lot of groans out of the audience when I said that. Japanese level groan. You have to be able to hear that. But and I dug my heels in and kind of got a little aggressive about it, because I'm like, that's ridiculous thinking. You owe Japan, in this case, right? You owe Japan a certain amount of responsibility. The fact that you are safe, the fact that you have clothes in your back, food in your belly, the ability to move anywhere you want, etc., etc. You owe a certain amount of responsibility to this country. It's not free, right? And I dug
Yeah.
into that, and I said one of those responsibilities is you making a family and putting new children in for the future. That's part of your responsibility to this country, right? So
Mm.
I actually dug into this conversation not that long ago. And like I said, they kind of pissed me off. It kind of triggered me a little bit. It was in a very Japanese professor way, but I dug my heels in, right? And yeah, even here in Japan, you're getting some of this silliness, right?
Yeah, it's Japan is not immune. And in
No,
fact, if it gains cultural prominence of any degree in Japan, it's going to get hellish over there because the Japanese people are very compliant.
they're very sheepish. Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's a shame because they come from a heritage of just the most brutal warriors to ever
badass.
dawn history. Yeah, just
Yeah,
super
yeah.
badasses.
The funny.
And
Oh, go ahead.
I hope that comes back, and I think it will. I think Japan's going to be forced into a martial state
China will
very
probably force
soon.
them. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and then that's in the blood, right? There's a reason why, uh, you know, Western civilization has rised and fallen many times because it comes back because it's in the blood, and I think it's in the Japanese blood too
I
to be
think so too.
warriors.
They are definitely not quitters type of thing.
No,
And when you talk about the old warrior, the bushi, or the Westerner would understand that as the samurai. But
yeah,
um, you know the level of badassery is a whole is bigger than you think, because modern people, because of Hollywood, anime, manga, and stuff like that, have this idea that the nihonto, or the katana, is this amazing, most awesome sword ever made ever. Dude, it's a shit
yeah,
sword.
no,
It's
it
a
is. Yeah,
shit sword. It's nowhere near the
terrible
best
for
sword.
combat.
It's horrible.
Terrible for combat. Yeah,
However, how they took that shit thing and turned it into this badass fighting technique, and
yeah,
how they used it, that's what made it amazing. Because the bushi of Japan were mercenaries all over Asia, dude.
yes.
Right?
Oh, and the better war weapon from Japan is the naginata. Their
Well,
spear
it's
weaponry.
just like the spear. Yeah, it
Yeah,
feels that same thing. That's a Chinese weapon anyway. But yeah, no, of course
yes.
you're right. I'm talking about the warrior, the solo warrior. But that so it shows you it's a whole nother level of it, because it isn't the sword that was badass; it was the samurai.
Whereas if you
Right?
would have given them Western metaling, not metal techniques, because they're actually pretty decent metallurgists, but Western forging techniques of the actual blacksmithing to the blades and things,
Yeah, that
and
was their
given them
problem.
those designs, whew,
They
I
didn't
don't know, man.
they didn't have the
Whew,
crucible technology,
no,
which is weird because China had it, and it was just a short little hop
yeah.
over the water.
But they're like,
Uh,
China.
Well,
Not
exactly.
using their technology.
Because people know that during Edo Jidai, or this past 400-year period, Japan closed down. What I don't think a lot
Yes.
of people understand, they've done that many times. They are
Yeah.
xenophobic by nature, culturally xenophobic. So yeah, but I mean, anyway, I don't want to get into that conversation. But the Shinto style is where it's at. Shinto is just animism, dude. Anyway, let's move on here because this will keep us here all day. All right. Go ahead.
Xbox parent company Microsoft takes woke speech to a new level at Microsoft Ignite 2021. I saw a part of this. I didn't listen to it because I value my sanity. I saw the commentary on it. I said,
Yeah.
that's all I need to know."
Well, see,
That is, I can't even imagine a world where you want to normalize having to describe everything about your appearance before you speak a fucking sentence.
dude, I thought it was a meme.
No, it
I
was
thought it was a
real.
joke, but it's real.
It was real.
Hi,
I'm
my name's
growing more and
Alice.
more
I'm a
convinced.
white lady. I go she, her. I have blonde hair. I mean, they were literally describing their appearance. Why? We
I
can
grow
see
more and
you.
more convinced that all of this is a plot from the globalists and the Chinese to weaken the West so much that when they come to conquer, we're just like, just please, just get this over with, because the cringe is too much. We can't take it anymore. We don't want to live. It's too much.
Yeah,
It's it's mind-bogglingly stupid
it is
to
stupid.
think.
Yeah,
It's just stupid. Like, we need to just get back to mocking it. Stop trying to explain it. Stop trying to dissect it and make rational art. No, just call it stupid. Call this dumb, stupid, petty, childish. Call it really, like, just get in there. Get deep in the vocabulary, right? Call it verbal excrement. Call it all sorts of things. Make them be on the defensive footing. Make them defend their absolute nonsense instead of trying to pick it apart and dissect it. And that's something that I've seen the people who are against this stuff on both sides of the political aisle start to do. We're just done. We're not going to argue with you anymore. We're just going to call you clowns because you're
no, it
clowns.
is clowns. Yeah, and the thing he's talking about. I think there's a little video clip here I can show you in a second. That
Uh,
is just. I don't even get. I thought it was a meme. I still think it's a meme. However, this one here got me too. The manager, Allison Weens. Now, I wonder if she's related to that food blogger guy, Weens. He's got a good food blog on YouTube, by the way. If you haven't checked it out, he's fun. Anyway, this is what she said. She acknowledged that the land where the Microsoft campus is situated was traditionally occupied by the Samamamish, the Duamamish, the Snowakwakawimimi, I don't think that's a word, the Muckleshoot, the Snowhushim, and the Tulalip, and other coastal Salish people since time immemorial. Well, no, certainly not time
No,
immemorial. Certainly
not even
not.
quite. Not even
But
close.
don't I think they're memeing though, dude? Look at the Samamish are certainly a people, but the Snoqualmie, that's English. The Muckleshoot, that's Harry Potter. I think they're taking the piss, dude.
Wish they were. No, the worst part is obviously to any rational person they are. The problem is they don't know it. they're not. They're making fun of themselves without even realizing it.
Yeah, no,
Kind of like being a Detroit Lions fan. You're the butt of the joke, bud. Every time.
yeah,
Just
that's
just
true.
accept it.
It sucks. Yeah, old Sam Harris, one of the greatest intellectuals of our age. It seems like part of the rationale for this must be to help the visually impaired, probably. But whatever the intentions, this makes Microsoft look like the Cirque du Soleil of wokeness. Not nice, Mr. Harris. Thank you.
Cirque du
But
Soleil of wokeness. Listen, I'll listen to Sam Harris again when he gets treated for his near terminal TDS that he has. Because the
Microsoft
man just lost
Ignite.
his
We've got
mind under
a
Trump.
big day ahead and
Oh, you're
lots
making me
in
listen
store
to it.
for
This
you.
guy.
First, we want to acknowledge that the land is ancient heritage. Let's
this is
talk.
just
And I'm Seth Juarez, program manager in the AI Platform Group. I'm a tall Hispanic male wearing a blue shirt, khaki pants. Today we kick off 2 days of learning more about the
You
latest
sound like a
solutions.
Are
white
you
guy,
tall?
Hispanic.
Are you a tall Hispanic man? Are you want to go toe to toe?
He's probably about my height. How tall is he, you think? 5'9", 5'10",
He
maybe
didn't look very.
5'11"?
Yeah, these guys right here too.
Adilla. I'm a Caucasian woman with long blonde hair, and I go by she, her. I'm a product marketing lead here at Microsoft and co-host of the podcast.
So stupid. I'm sure what they were thinking though was exactly that. They were. It had something to do with we need to represent the visually impaired. It's like no, you don't.
No, you don't.
No, you don't.
I mean, do we need to represent people with 6 fingers? Like, come on.
I mean, yeah.
How far down this rabbit hole are we going to go to find minorities? Eventually, I mean, maybe it's a good thing because maybe eventually one of them will realize that the greatest minority is always the individual, and they'll come back around to the actual classical liberalism they're running from.
That was deep.
But I just don't expect that level of insight.
No.
No.
Well, it's like every damn speech you see, even in Japan, I have to have a sign languager on the side. And they're always some dumpy
Subtitles
asshole
work
that is
fine.
Yeah,
subtitles work just fine,
Yeah.
and we have now literally automatic or near perfect synchronous translation machines that can subtitle what you're saying and even translate the language to another language at breakneck speed. They have this technology now. I've seen it. I've used it. So why, in God's name, do we need to pay some clown a whole lot of money to stand there and make Naruto jutsus at the damn camera?
Yeah, it's just dumb. It's a waste of time, and it's distracting as well. But what I don't really care, but it is kind of silly. Jeff says his son received an email from the college he attends, and the person who sent it included their pronouns in the footer of the email. Of course they did. He also continues, one day I should tell you guys about my Microsoft interviewer experience. You should.
Oh, God.
You should. Yeah. I
Oh,
am a
Lord.
meat popsicle. Indeed we are, Dave. All right, moving on.
That's right.
Speaking of meat popsicles.
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air actress Janet Hubert goes full Blue Anon, speculates Trumpers gave Alec Baldwin loaded gun on set of Rust. I mean, maybe that assistant director was maybe he voted for Trump. It's possible.
The green hair girl who was in charge of the guns, who gave the gun? That one?
Yeah, she's definitely very much a Republican.
Very far
Looks
right.
the part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Radical.
She's about two steps away from hailing Hitler. You know, she's right there.
Yeah. Well, she is technically. The lefties are fascists. But this, of course, is Mama Cosby. If you don't recognize her, she's old. I will give her a pass, I think. But she legitimately said this on her Twitter. First of all, ma'am, you're way too old to be doing Twitter. You're a good 20 years older than me.
Yeah.
Don't go on the twatters, please. It's not for you. She believed that, the first thing that came to my mind, am I crazy? But the first thought it was Baldwin was given a gun on purpose for someone to get back at him for his Trump impersonations. First of all, his Trump impersonations were funny. Yeah. I don't,
They
who
were
cares
okay.
if he did it? No, I mean, maybe not every single one. I've only seen a couple, but they were pretty funny. I didn't mind
Um,
it. It's just
I think there's
satire.
people who, yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think there's people who do them a lot better. But I wouldn't say they were unfunny. They were about as good as SNL gets in the last 15 years. So there's that.
Yeah, no, yeah. But she said she's never seen a prop gun ever out on sitting on set. Well, if we were talking about the prop guns that are actual real guns, that's true. If it's like a plastic gun or a rubber gun or whatever it is, that The Rock says for every move I'm on from now on, there's going to be rubber guns. Okay, you go, Rock. So if it's a real gun she's talking about, well, that should be true. She shouldn't be wrong. But of course, you're out of your mind, ma'am. You're out of your mind, because this whole thing was just irresponsibility from day one, and there were many problems. Not it just culminated in the death of that lady. But the internet jumped on her ass, and they gave her a real hard time. I personally would just ignored it and gave her a pass, though. I mean, she's an old lady, man.
Yeah, it's just what I was talking about with Sam Harris, right? Terminal TDS. Trump broke these people.
Yeah.
And I don't understand how or why. I mean, what happened? Maybe I was out of touch. I don't know. I'm okay with being out of touch. If being in touch turns you into this, I'm perfectly fine with it. And I didn't even vote for Trump because of a myriad of constitutional reasons that he mostly proved correct on. I wouldn't vote for him. I'm not going to give my vote to anybody, even if they are a decent president,
Well, let's be
if they're
fair.
not
I
worthy
mean,
of it.
Trump is a liberal.
Yeah,
He's
he
a
was
straight up
basically a
classical liberal.
Democrat from 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Basically, he was very there was very little different between him and like a Bill Clinton's presidency, except Bill Clinton's presidency, largely because of the way Congress was run at the time, actually did very good with the budget and
Yeah.
making the economy at least a little bit more stable. There was other problems, however, that he signed that set us up for the failure of 2008, but that's another
Right.
topic.
Especially
But regardless,
government spying stuff. Yeah, like
I
him
think
and
Trump
Bush, yeah.
was a fine he was the best president of my lifetime. Now that's not a great endorsement because the presidents of my lifetime have all sucked.
Well,
All of them.
Clinton
Every
wasn't
one.
that bad a president, really.
Well, I mean, besides the fact that he would, bomb Tylenol factories just to try and distract
He's
from his
far
stuff
from
at home
perfect,
and
but overall,
killed
I give
innocent
him a
people.
plus.
There were the Trump's victory in that regard isn't really a victory, and that's the problem. We've had such shit for so long, and the American populace, and we've been mistreated and abused and talked down to and disrespected by our government that's supposed to work for us for so long that Trump to people on the right, just because he simply wasn't attacking them anymore, looked good, whereas to people on the left, he looked like Hitler reborn. And now you have a guy in there who literally shits his pants in front of foreign dignitaries more than once in the last week. He's done this to the point where one of them made comments on how bad he smelled. That what do we do with that? Like this is the bottom of the barrel. Biden has been
complaining about "Let's go, Brandon."
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't go from 81 million votes, allegedly, for you to the most unpopular president besides Trump of the modern era in less than a year, unless you are absolutely terrible at your job.
His numbers are way lower than Trump's.
At the same time, yes. But Trump had he had a couple that were lower, like they were allegedly.
Well, demographically maybe, but overall no. But yeah,
But my point is, we've had a lot of TDS over the last The only times the only reason I took up defending Trump at all was because the TDS, even when he was running, was so bad. People would take everything this guy said and twist it into not even the worst of possibility interpretations that make no fucking sense at all. Like just nonsense, just insanity. It'd be like if I was reading Spanish and I started talking in Swahili. Like it doesn't even, there's no connection to the reality of the words the man said. Case in point, a great example was the Charlottesville thing. There's still people on this earth today who think that Trump endorsed Nazis when he did the exact opposite.
They think he hates women too, and where mainly employs women. So whatever, they're idiots. My brother joined the army in 1986 as Clinton crippled the military. They all make mistakes, and there was plenty of things Clinton did that I didn't like. However, he did run an efficient government, though. And he was a president. He did what presidents
Well,
were supposed to
the
do.
only real reason why it was so efficient wasn't really him. I mean, he gets credit for it because he was the president, so we have to give him that credit.
Yeah.
But when you get down into it and analyze it, it was Newt Gingrich as the speaker who saved his presidency from being terrible.
Probably,
because he brought a lot of balance to the card, and literally is the reason the budget was balanced during his term. Yeah.
But Clinton, as horrible as he may be as a human, I'm sure he is quite diabolical. However, he is one of the best presidents I've ever seen when it comes to sitting down and be able to have a conversation about economics. The guy is a genius, dude.
He's also very conversational. Biden couldn't carry a conversation, at least not anymore. He used to actually be very conversational, Biden. But now, now you can't. I mean, it's like talking to an actual retard. I mean, he's gone. There's nothing there anymore. Yeah.
Just like our lady here. She's old lady, so I'm going to give her a pass. Where is she? There she is. Yeah, you get a pass.
It just must be hell living in their world.
I know.
Just terrified. Just
yeah.
Oh man,
it is.
I don't even hate him. I just pity him. Like it's just, man. Sure. Trump broke your mind. He broke your mind.
They hate us. Understand that.
Yeah. I'm all right with that. I've been hated by better. I'm not even trying that. Ava DuVernay? Is that how you say that?
DuVernay.
Yeah, France. France? Can we talk about France for a minute? Can we just stop with French words? They're nonsense words.
Don't get me on that conversation, sir. Don't do that.
I'm just going to call her Ava. Ava hints Zack Snyder's Justice League was Warner Brothers' reason for canceling New Gods. Ray Fisher weighs in. Hey, a comma! They do know how to use commas!
Yeah, finally. Yeah, Augustine got it. But I don't want to spend much time on this. This, for me, is amazingly happy news because I had heard some months back that they had pushed this movie back. What I didn't know is they canceled it. They pulled it.
Yeah.
And I couldn't be more delighted because this loser lady, she's literally done nothing but fail. She was doing the Kirby's New Gods, and we just saw the Eternals, and what a train wreck that was. It's the same story, of course. And thank God. And that's about all I really want to say on it. Is the failure of that is what caused them to pull it? Fine, whatever. This is her, by the way. I don't care. All I care is it's gone. Thank God. That's it.
Yeah, I don't want anybody in Hollywood, at least not right now, to touch New Gods.
Yeah.
It's way too high concept, way too intelligent for them. It just is. It's way above anybody in there. Maybe the Villanueva guy who just made the Dune movie. Everybody else, stay away. I don't even want you to think about it. I want you to think it's stupid and mock it and never make it, please. Because that's where you belong. Stay away from it. It's too far above you. It's way up here in the clouds. You're down here in the mud.
Yeah.
Just stay away.
Well, to give an example of what you just said, to show that off, the Eternals movie. Spoilers, by the way. If you actually were planning on going to see Eternals, I'm going to spoil it. The whole thing with the Eternals, not in the comic, in what they decided to do with the movie, right? Is the Eternals are just a bunch of androids created by the Celestials to manage the planet. right? And the what they set up was this: the Celestials, and in the comic book, it's kind of like this, but they went they because they're not smart enough to understand it. They went too far one way, and I'll explain what I mean. In the movie, the concept of the Celestials are they are the ones that produce the universe. All the planets, all the suns, everything that there is, and all the life in it comes from the Celestials' work. However, in order to birth a Celestial, they will use a planet as an egg, make sure there's life on it, put Eternals there to maintain the planet, and therefore, when the celestial is born out of that planetary egg, it devours all the life on the planet, is born, and then goes in and starts creating life. And in the end, it's going to create trillions and quadrillions of life forms throughout its existence, petillions, maybe even. Okay, so that's their concept. Fine, fair enough. But in this movie, they decide, no, we're going to fight for Earth, and they end up stopping the Celestial and killing it. Okay, what have you done here? And by the way, the bad guy, of course, is the white guy. It's the one white
Of course.
Eternal. He decides, I'm
Every
going to do
time.
my
Yeah.
job. He's, of course, But here's the thing: where they painted themselves into the corner. Okay, you stopped that, but what you did was cause the death of petillions and petillions of life forms.
Yeah.
This is what you did. And by creating this scenario, by the greed of Earth having to survive, you've kept untold number of sentients from being born in the future. You've actually caused harm. This is the genius of these dumbasses.
Yeah.
Because in the
So that
movie, you really want and you should root for the Icarus, who's trying to do his job, and the Celestial, because if Earth wins, so many die.
yeah,
That's what they did, dude.
of course. And yet we're supposed to like this has happened repeatedly now where the villain, I use that term as loosely as possible, is by far the more reasonable person, the more
Yeah.
rational, the more intelligent, the more duty bound and honor bound, and even often more honest than the heroes. And yet, because of the way because the script demands it, or because of who they are, they're supposed to be cheered. I give you an example. The best example is the Black Panther movie. Up until Killmonger decides to mustache twirl and become, what he became by the end for no actual reason, he is easily the more honorable, forthright, and better choice to be king of Wakanda.
Yep.
He wins in the little battle, whatever it was called. He beats him fair and square. He didn't cheat, didn't do anything. He just beat him, and he was an honest, honorable man. And then all of a sudden he wasn't, because the script needed him to be.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just one example. Now you can say, well, that they're trying to make a good villain. They're trying to make a villain that you can understand their point of view. They don't want to make one-sided, real easy. Okay, that's fine. You can do that. Thanos is a perfect example. He wasn't necessarily wrong, Thanos, but his methods were obviously insane. That's how you do that. You don't do it by making them perfectly honorable and just up until the point when they're not anymore. You don't do that by making it so that when the heroes succeed, they actually make everything worse. That's not. Nobody wants to.
That's
do
what
that.
happened. Yeah, they reversed this in the worst way, right?
Yes.
So it's like dumbasses, and it was easy to fix if you had any idea of what it is the story you were trying to tell. And it's clear they just don't understand the dynamic of the Celestials and Galactus. They don't understand it. They don't understand it. Because if they
Yeah.
did, they wouldn't have gone and called Ego a Celestial, right?
Well, just wait until we get to Galactus, because eventually they're going to get there.
Why?
Oh
They
boy,
made him irrelevant.
it's going to be. It's going to be terrible. I hope everybody's ready. I hope they've prepared their butts, because it's going to be just awful.
Yeah.
What they do to Galactus.
Moving on. I love this one. This made me joyous and happy. I actually
It is
smiled.
pretty good. Variety's Clayton Davis claims that Eternal's Rotten Tomatoes score is so low because it's directed by a woman. Well, I agree. The problem was the director. and the studio and the fact that the script exists and the fact that this movie was made. I actually agree. But oh wait, you mean because people hate women? Oh, well, no,
right.
that's no. I mean, there's been plenty of female directors who have been very successful, writers, producers, actresses. I see no evidence to support this.
More importantly, this specific woman just last year was giving accolade after accolade, award after award for her little boring movie that she made. Idiot. Clayton, you're an idiot.
And the best part is
Clayton.
Is the score, the low score, is the paid journalists.
Davis. 2 first names. Dipshit.
The people who gave it the low score are the journalists, the woke ones, the ones who you'd think would love this movie and be all about it and blah 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 blah. And then the audience is actually giving it a decent score. They're like, it's not bad, it's okay. That's basically the audience's reaction to it. It's okay. Now there is some
as well, though.
Yeah, I was just about to say there is some evidence that some of those reviews for the audience score are nonsense, are bots. And the reason why is because there's a whole lot of them, and I guess these are on all of them, but it just something about it seems off. There's a whole lot of them that say like 1 or 2 words and then 5 stars or whatever, however the rating system is, like max rating. And there's just so many of them, like in a row, just like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, that people are like, that looks like marketing. That looks like a bot farm.
No, you're right. There's 2 things. If you give it a 5, that's fresh, right? 1. 2, anytime you see a score of 86%, it's sus. Because it's their algorithm they use produces that 86%, and we've seen it several times. So that particular number, if you see 86%, you know that's bullshit. It's complete bullshit.
Well, 86% is also it's kind of a perfect amount, because to a passive observer who doesn't know how these things operate, they'll see that and it won't trigger any alarm bells, right? Whereas when you see big disparities, one way or the other, it's going to make you feel some kind of way. But 86% is like, oh, okay, it's like a B plus, right? It's like, oh, okay, it's an okay movie. It's a B, right?
Yeah, but it's interesting how that number pops up a lot. But and it's complete nonsense, because if you listen to any reviewer that has any salt whatsoever, this movie is a train wreck. It's really poorly written. It's poorly directed. I mean, it's just bad on the mechanical level, right? Besides whether you find it interesting or you like the visuals or whatever, that has nothing to do with it. It's just mechanically bad. And I'm surprised Feige, but then again, that's probably why he got pushed back so far. And I bet you it was Chapek, and I probably said this before, I bet you it was Chapek that forced that movie to come out, because there's a war going on between him and Feige and Kennedy, right? And he, because he put a kibosh on any extra money for extra shoots, and I bet you Feige wanted to go back and do some reshoots, and he was like, nope, ain't doing it. And they tried to delay as much as they can, but Chapek forced it out. I have a feeling this is what happened, because I'm surprised. I really expected it to be a 5-6 movie as usual for Marvel, right? But it's literally a very mechanically poorly done movie, and that's weird.
No, I think there is some meat on that bone that Chapek purposefully pushed this out. I think he purposely did so because he wants to move in a new direction, away from Feige and away from Kennedy and their political stuff. Now,
he's right too.
Now because they're not making the money they once were. Now, some of that is the COVID stuff and everything, of course. Absolutely it is. But a lot of it isn't. And he knows that. And he agrees with them. He's just as much of a lefty politically as they are. He's just as much on their side with all this nonsense as they are. But he also wants to have his term be profitable. You see, he's coming in off of the most successful CEO in the company's history. He's taken his place, Bob Iger. He doesn't want to be the guy who screws that up, right? That's not what he wants his legacy to be. So it's a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for? Self-protection, right? He's trying to protect himself. A little survival instinct has kicked in. So he wants these movies to be incredibly successful, like, Endgame and Infinity War and all that was. He wants to keep them at that level or in that over $1 billion a movie type range. And he knows that this, whatever you want to call it, isn't going to do that. And he knows that political messaging and forcing a political narrative isn't going to do that. And not going to do it in China, which they're going to need China if they want to hit those kind of numbers again, whether anybody likes it or not. That's just the reality of our world. So
Sure.
they're not going to.
That's not going to happen, though.
I think he's fighting to take Marvel back 5 years ago. To take Marvel back and back away from this nonsense and just make superhero stories
Fun
again.
movies. Yeah, popcorn.
Yeah,
flicks.
fun movies, popcorn flicks without a deep narrative, but maybe some, obviously interconnected, but nothing too grand, too big, high concept, and just go at it. And I think Mr. Chapek is obviously correct in this. That's what should happen. That's what they must do. And they also need a tonal shift in how they approach their fan bases. They need, from the ground up, from their directors to their writers to the stars of their films, there should be no hostility permitted towards fans. I don't care where you're engaging with them, unless they are directly being hostile to you and they can act on it, meaning it's like it's in person. On the internet, if somebody's hostile to you, just let it go. That should be the rule. They should have a very tight social media policy for anybody who's contracted to them. And if you don't like that, then you don't work here. Simple as that.
Well, sure. And there's a reason why we have an expression, the customer's always right.
Yes.
It's about profit.
Now, I disagree with that expression. I think there are times when the customer's being a cunt and you need to scurry him on out and put him back, teach him a little bit of basic respect. That being said, this isn't a problem of basic respect, at least not from the customer. This is a problem of basic respect from these entitled Hollywood pricks who think that they're entitled to our attention and our money and treat us as such. So it can go both ways. And there needs to be a level of discourse. The level of discourse needs to be elevated. All of these people need to toughen up or disengage from it entirely. And they need to have the class and the grace of a Robert Downey Jr., at least modern Robert Downey Jr., when it comes to handling these things, when it comes to talking to people who are relatively antagonistic, or just not do that at all if it's not something you're capable of managing.
Yeah, just be nice. And Karens are not customers.
That's true.
Okay.
That's a good point.
But looking at this picture here, we all knew who the bad guy was going to be, or the supposed bad guy. Of course, the only white guy that's there. But in the end, he technically isn't defeated. He just doesn't have the support to do, because they destroyed the Celestial, right? Before they didn't allow it to be born. So you know what he does in protest? He suicides himself by flying into the sun.
What?
Geniuses. Genius.
Why?
Because they're idiots, dude. And the whole one thing it's very, very obvious throughout the whole thing is it's all about abortion, because that's what they do. They do abort the Celestial, right? And it's not subtle either. But nevertheless, I got to move on because my time's getting tight. This with the clock change, I have less time. Let's end on happiness, though. Okay.
Clancy Brown looks back on playing Lex Luthor in Superman the Animated Series. It was so much fun, and it was.
It was.
That was the best iteration of a serialized Superman probably there has been.
I think
that
so.
animated series.
I agree.
It was great.
It was really, really good, and Clancy deserves a clap.
Yeah.
You go, Clancy. He did a really good job, and he's so happy and proud. He's not like a lot of these dumbass actors who want to put that's beneath me and put it behind them, like Jennifer Lawrence, and well, there's a whole huge list, right? He actually respects it, and he had a great time doing it. Let me show you. No, bad.
Yeah,
no.
Zack Snyder needs to be purged from history for that. That alone.
Right there. That's
Look
our
at Clancy.
boy. That's our boy right there. Because he was awesome, Lex Luthor, dude.
He was.
He was awesome. If you guys haven't seen the Superman animated series, I wouldn't put it. It's below the Batman animated series, to be fair, but hardly, barely.
It's right there. Yeah, it's in the same running. Batman animated series is probably the best animated superhero series.
It's
like
ridiculous.
Objectively, it's so good. But Superman isn't far behind it.
No.
It's that whole era there was just awesome. It was just awesome. from beginning to end, pretty much every one of the shows were really good, both DC and Marvel. And I don't think we'll ever get that again. Not that level of quality and that run. And people like Clancy's run as Lex is unbelievable. If you've never heard him, which most people listening probably have, but if you never watched any of those, and you like Superman and you like Lex, he embodied that role. He
did.
killed it. He was menacing. He was charismatic. He was everything Lex has never been in the movies.
Yeah.
All of it. He was all of it.
I agree. I mean, he's as iconic to my ear as Hamill is to the Joker.
Yeah,
Right.
in fact, I wish he would have been
Lex Luthor. Yeah.
I wish that would have happened like it did with the Joker and Kevin Conroy with Kevin Conroy's Batman with Clancy, because he just killed it. He got it. He understood the character. He understood exactly how his tone should be, when he should have a more aggressive tone, when he should pull back. It's a masterful work of voice acting.
Yeah, it is. And they did mention Gene Hackman in the beginning, saying that's most people's favorite Lex Luthor. I don't agree at all.
No,
I don't agree at all. I like Gene. Gene's been in so many cool things, but I didn't care for him as Lex Luthor at all.
Well, he's
because
not Lex
I've
Luthor.
actually read a single comic.
Yeah, I mean, he at least was charismatic.
Well, he was
but
doing
he's
his
not,
thing, right? You know.
Right, but he's not Lex, man. Lex is menacing. He's intimidating. He is the Superman if Superman didn't exist, and that's how he sees himself as the only reason he's not the best man in the world is because of Superman.
He is the perfect human, and that's the point. This little scrawny thing, whatever this thing is not correct. I don't care if he doesn't have hair. It doesn't mean anything. Because Lex Luthor is all about humanity. The reason he doesn't like Superman is because he's an alien. He's a racist, is what he is.
Yeah, he's a xenophobe.
Yeah.
And he believes in excellence. And one of the reasons he doesn't like Superman in many of the iterations is because Superman doesn't have to work for it. He's just better. And he hates that. He hates the concept of that. He says it's not fair. He's not wrong. It's not fair, but it's not Superman's fault. He didn't ask for this.
Right. That's true. But I mean, we don't have to break down the character of Lex Luthor per se. He did a great job. And let's not forget, he is forever and the immortal Kurgan.
Yes. Kurgan was great too.
Yes, he was awesome. He's the best part of that damn movie, dude. Him and Sean Connery was pretty good too. But like Christopher Lambert, I like him. But this, Clancy's what stole the show in that movie, dude. He was so awesome. Anyway, happy. I think I had a couple other things. What did I have up here?
Plus, he has a cool name, Clancy Brown.
It is. It is. These things were put up here by Adrian, I think. But I just put it up here. The Pink News, of course, was talking about how officers were dispatched to the home of DC Comics for his gay Superman to protect him. It was horrible. Bad things were death threats. Then, of course, it came out that no, that never happened. Of course,
that just didn't happen.
And didn't happen at all. So why is it that? I mean, they lie constantly. I get that, but why is it always such an easily disproven lie, though?
Because all they care about is the dopamine hit of the virtue signal, and the other part of it they just ignore because there's no consequences for it. There should be. I think
that's fair.
Society would be much better if we made lying like that illegal. But hey, I don't get to make those decisions.
Yeah. Well, fair enough. I don't have much time. I'll try to put a presentation this week. I am pretty busy. I got a bunch of extra stuff going on. But just a kind of a quick little ending here for the show, talking about the mud flood. Now, the mud flood, as with all conspiracy theories, they get wacky, right? It's just like when you're looking at the comparison between history, legend, and mythology, right? And mythology is just more fantastical and wacky, whereas there is truth in there somewhere, right? Legend is more close to history with a little bit of wackiness, and history, if we're lucky, is accurate, right? And as with all conspiracies, the mud flood has a lot of nonsense put on top of it that's unnecessary. It's just like the flat Earth people. When you say flat Earth, you laugh. It's just a joke. No one takes them seriously whatsoever. And in all honesty, you shouldn't. However, they have found discrepancies. There is actual kernels of truth to flat Earth. Does it mean the Earth's flat? No, but there's something's going on, right? And that's the problem. When mud flood, they go into all kind of crazy ideas of reset. For some reason, they really want to apply the Tartar Empire, and I get that in a little bit. I don't know why it's applied to this, but the Tartar Empire, of course, the Tatar Empire, was this mammoth, uh, the largest empire in man's history. And they just kind of disintegrated, right? They ended up with what we call the Ottoman Empire, and that disintegrated eventually as well. And there's good conversations you could have about why that happened and why no one even has ever heard of the Tatari. And if you go talk to these people in the streets, who are these people? They have no clue. They don't teach in school. It's almost as if it was forgotten, and I get that because it is weird. Even though there was this gigantic empire that lasted for centuries, right? But whatever. I don't know why it's connected to this, because they always want to create some kind of consistent conspiracy, I guess. And their ideas is every 400 years or so, there's a great disaster, which we know does happen. And when that happens, the powers that be, the mystical Illuminati, reset everything and reset history and rewrite everything. I don't know why you have to go there. I don't get it, because here is the real conversation about mud flood, right? And I think it probably had more to do with some large volcano that went off that we don't have a recording of some reason, and we just had this huge mud rain is probably more realistic than just some kind of tsunami or something. But here are just some pictures I have for you. And there are thousands of these, thousands and thousands and thousands. This is not, there is something here. And as you can see, there are foundations and windows and levels of a thing that are way underground. Here's another example. When they're doing some excavating, they find it. Like, why is there a whole level of the house underground? More examples. More examples that haven't been dug out. There are many, 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 many photos, right? Clearly, all over the world, coastal areas, it seems mainly, although I haven't researched it enough to know that that's that specific. However, all over the world, sometime about 200 some years ago, there was an absolute devastation of mud dropped upon the planet. Like I said, coastally was why most people would say it's tsunami based, but I don't know if that makes sense. Because not just in the Atlantic Ocean. If it was just one ocean, it would make more sense, right? But you can find them over here in Japan as well. You can find them in America. So I have no clue how this happened, but it did, and it was only a couple hundred years ago. These buildings aren't from 1,000 years ago, guys. Now, some of these pictures are old cities that were built on top of. London is a good example. But that's the general gist of the mud flood, Thundero. I don't care about all of that other crazy conspiracy stuff. I don't even understand why it has to be put in there. The thing is, we have buildings all over the world that clearly were buried a couple of hundred years ago. That's it. Are you still there?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I'm here.
Yeah.
I was the this is an interesting one because it I don't understand what the point of not talking about it would be.
Yeah, I don't either. That's why they get into these crazy conspiracy theories about resets and Illuminatis and all that kind of stuff. I get how they got there. However, it's and it's not, and the ones in America are the more interesting one. That's not a good example. But some of the pictures, I'd have to put together a presentation to really demonstrate it to you. But there are a lot of photos, dude, a lot where you can compare like old photos to modern photos and things when they get excavated. You can see clearly that a lot of these cities gained 10 foot of mud on top of the city. Now, how in the hell does that happen at such a global level and it not be documented? I mean, clearly we survived it. I mean,
It's pretty strange. I just don't know what it would. Who benefits from not talking about it? Like, what could have caused? One, what could have caused it, and two, who benefits from it? I was thinking while you were talking about it. The problem is it wasn't long enough ago. Is if it was part of like from the mini ice age, it was the melt off, but it wasn't long enough ago for that.
no, because that would have
So
been in the 17th century, late 17th century when the melt off would have
right.
happened. Yeah. Yeah, I
So
don't
I
know, dude.
don't know what could have caused that. Like it's, and the weird part about it is this is one of those ones where it's so obvious that something happened,
Clearly.
something weird
Yeah,
happened,
clearly.
but the scientific community is just not interested. They dismiss it as a conspiracy theory. They call it all, all the basic slurs, just like the giants. Yet we know for a fact that there's something to
Oh
that, and
yeah.
they just
Well,
don't want to investigate
call
it.
them a Smithsonian and ask them if you can see documentation on giants. They'll say, "Oh, we don't know where we put that." Now, note
Yeah,
they didn't say that's not real. They
they
said
just
they
don't have
just don't have it, which is bullshit.
it.
But
Yes.
but so yeah, and this falls into that category. I understand why these guys are desperately trying to find a reason, and they go to all these crazy conspiracy theories. And like, technically anything's possible under the sun, I guess. But something went on, and it's quite shocking. And it didn't involve just modern buildings, as you see a lot of these are modern in cities. So it happened in a city, everybody in that city knew about it, I guarantee. But it also happened in places like the pyramid and the Sphinx. Those pictures you see, they were drawn by Napoleon, and then later photographs just a few decades later, or early photographs, before it was completely dug out in modern time. It's not covered by desert sand over thousands of years. That was covered instantly. That's rock and mud and stuff that covered those things up.
Right.
And so it was part of that too. But it only happened around that time of Napoleon, right? It was around that period. And you got other
Well, it
things
also
too.
goes to another great example of weird. Not even it's not even well, it is a conspiracy, but it's not a theory of weird stuff like the giants and like this is Antarctica. Why is the powers that be of this world the only thing they seem to all agree on is Antarctica is off limits? Why?
Yeah.
Why is it so off limits to basically everybody? What in the hell is down there that they're afraid of everybody finding? It's just weird because it's the only place on the planet that I think anyway that basically all of the major powers agree no one's allowed to touch.
Yeah.
Why? It's
Yeah.
a whole continent of resources and all sorts of things that could be exploited. No one's allowed to touch it
Well,
though. You
it's clearly
forbidden.
suspect, right? There's something
Yes.
else going on there. Now, could it be just simply hiding of ruins, which they seem to like to do, or is it something deeper? I don't know. I don't know the answer to this one either. All I know is something happened, clearly,
But look at that
right?
picture you've got up right there.
Yeah,
What the hell? Why is that so deep?
yeah,
Why is that so deep? Why won't they talk about it?
yeah,
I don't get it. I don't get it, man. It's just it's one of those ones where it's almost like they're fucking with us on
yeah.
purpose.
Well,
Like they're
this,
just trying to get us to talk about it because there is no deep meaning to it. It's just like it's like a 4D chess move. It's a feint. Like
yeah.
we'll get them confused about this so they don't look over here.
Well, this one is more telling, actually. You can that other one is pretty impressive because it is so deep, but that could be a separate issue. This is a better look at it here. Clearly, you
Yeah.
have a building that's not that ancient. It easily could be a few hundred years old, a couple hundred years old, and you can, as they've dug this foundation out to try to do some repair on it, probably, you can see the old doorway, and of course they've put new doorways in. Instead of cleaning out the mud, they just kind of lived above it, right? And we see this all over. Like I said, there
Yeah.
are thousands of examples of this. This isn't just one or two weird little questions. It's because it's so widespread is why it's a thing, right? But here you see clearly there was and they haven't even dug down deep enough really yet. But clearly this building was intended to be a three-story building, but it's existed in modern memory as a two-story building. And people probably didn't, and that's the thing, they didn't even know. Look, you have the modern guttering has been brought down to that level, right?
Yeah.
Right? It's as if it never existed. And we have many, many examples of this. So, and because and it's also worldwide. So something really weird happened. I think it must have been some kind of weird volcanism and rain and just mud rain. I think that it must have been something like that. I don't know. I have no clue. But there's a lot of little weird things like that in history that they seem to just not acknowledge. Like another example, it's unrelated. The Stonehenge, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, many people have gone and seen, millions have seen Stonehenge. Well, do you know that they found Stonehenge half buried? They dug everything up, and all those stones were on the ground. And they sent like 100 years ago. They sent a team in to rebuild it. Right? What you see standing has not been standing for a long time. It was stood up by people with tractors and cranes, right? Now, it's not like those stones aren't real. They were lying there. But there's been a lot of controversy in the archaeological community specifically that you've probably never heard of that are questioning whether it was even put together right. Right? So you have a place that everyone thinks has been standing like that for, 5,000 years. No, they just stood that thing back up 100 years ago. Right? There's many little things like this in history that no one talks about, or there's not a lot of evidence. At least with Stonehenge, you can find photos if you want. You could dig into that mystery and you can find out what they did. This one, all we have is the after effect, and we have zero documentation.
So weird. Another example of it is the all the masonry all around the world that is supposedly cut with Bronze Age tools
Oh no,
that clearly was not cut with Bronze Age tools.
can I
There's no way.
Can I put an end to that right now, please?
Oh,
If no, seriously, let's just stick with Egypt because everyone knows that, right?
yeah.
But one of the great thing, the reason why everyone sticks on Egypt because they have so many visual references they painted on their walls and deserts that are still there, right? That's why
Yes.
Egypt, right? And those bronze tools, we have many, many, many pictures of them using them, many.
Yeah.
And you know what they were using them for? Would you like to guess?
Um, to eat with?
Woodworking.
Ah, that would make sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
bronze is harder than wood. Yeah.
There's hundreds and hundreds of paintings on these walls of them using those tools, and they're all woodworking. Every single solitary one is woodworking. Not once as you see any of those pictures and those tools associated with stone. Not once.
Yeah.
Right? Now, we have a
Yeah.
lot of pictures of the stone, and you know why you don't see them? You know why they don't talk about them? Because they all show giants carrying blocks around on their shoulders.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly.
Right?
It's I would just love to know, because here's what it is, right? It doesn't even have to be a big grand conspiracy like some like agency like Spectre from James Bond is in charge of keeping all of this information. No, it doesn't need to be that. It just needs to be people in the right places in control of certain very small number of people in control of certain institutions that just say no, we're not going to discuss that, and that's it. That's the end of it because they have the power and authority to make conversations go away. And that's exactly what happens. There's just so many things, like the giants, like the masonry that doesn't make any sense, that is clearly impossible. Whether it be from the way it's cut, to the precision that it's cut at, to the fact that there was no possible way for them to haul stone, at least by the understanding of their technology that we have, of that magnitude to the places that it's been moved to, sometimes hundreds and hundreds of miles from where the nearest deposit of it is. There's no possible way to get away from the fact that at some point humanity had technology far superior than what we've ever imagined, at least
Right.
for that time.
At least when it comes to the cutting stone.
Yes.
And let me help you out more because Egyptology is bullshit. They're full of
Yes.
shit. All right, don't be fooled by them. All right, because they know the answer to these things. You see these stupid, university professors getting up there and demonstrating. Well, maybe they use sand, and they got these copper saws, and it'll take about 25 years. We'll cut this eventually. These idiots, right? When we know, they know they're full of shit, dude. Because
Yeah.
they were so quick and agile at cutting stone that we have a lot of stone that they made a mistake and was just put off to
Yes.
the side, and we can
Yes.
see from those mistakes because if you're doing it slow, you're not going to get off your measurement, right? But they were
Right.
cutting the stone so quickly that they actually would get out of line a little bit. Screw it, throw this one aside, give me another one. We have
Right.
many examples, and the way the width of the cut that they were making, because we have ones that weren't completed cutting. God, it pisses me off. The width of the cut is like 3/4 of an inch or so. It's
Yeah.
very wide, and they're cutting so quickly that they occasionally would get off, and they would not stay on their line, right? At
Right.
that speed. Now imagine how fast you're going to be cutting stone at 3/4 of an inch thickness to be able to screw that up. Think about it. You're
Exactly.
moving right along. I mean, you're zipping right along,
You're
right?
you're basically like a saw. You're just
Big old giant water saw, I'd imagine, or
yeah.
maybe it would just water itself.
I mean, it
Sand,
wasn't until
water mixed with sand, maybe.
when was it? It wasn't until fairly recently that we were able to create cement that was equivalent to ancient cement, that is equivalent to Roman. Like
Right?
like historically, it wasn't until very recently. So the idea that they had technology that we just simply don't understand or don't have a an amalgamation of today or an echo of today isn't alien. We know that's happened because
Yeah, no, it's
we
human. It's
have
completely
Damascus
human.
steel, we have Roman cement, two examples that probably everybody's heard of, right there, and there's many more to the point where the Romans had working plumbing. They had working interior plumbing
Oh yeah,
in
they
many
did.
places of the empire,
Yeah,
yet in Europe for 1500 years or whatever it was, they didn't.
yeah,
So how does
because
that happen? Well, technology
well,
gets lost
because
if you don't use it.
around the year 800 there was a major cataclysm, as there is every 400 years,
Yeah.
and that one was so bad that the Northerners, those Scandinavian, those Viking peoples you keep wanting to call them, that
Yes.
came rushing out of their homes looking for warmth. The
Yes.
whole Viking raid thing had nothing to do with raiding. It had to do with trying to find a warmer place to live and food. That's what
Yeah.
it was
And they
about.
did.
And they
They
did.
did
Yeah,
very
they
many of
did.
them. Yeah.
Yeah. Normandy. Thank you.
Yes.
But and Russia as well. Most of Russia is actually
Correct.
founded by them initially.
By
Um,
the old Scandinavians,
yeah,
the Vikings as we call them,
yeah,
the Norsemen. They went and basically just took over the parts of Russia that became Russia,
right.
and then just slowly expanded their empire they built from their descendants. Um, but it's a whole conversation. This mud flood is just an example of it.
Yeah,
Of our history is a lie,
yeah.
and the only reason it continues to be a lie is because we have liars in these positions who, for some reason, about things that shouldn't matter, they lie,
Yeah.
and we just there's no answer, no good answer of to as to why they're lying. But we
No.
know they're lying. It's obvious they're
It's
lying.
clear. I mean, it's in your face, dude.
Yes.
And the reason I know this is because I'm in the field, right?
Yeah.
In this particular conversation. But this last one, this couple hundred years ago one, it's more reasonable that it would be easy to hide if some governmental group decided to hide it, because although the Europeans and the Americans at that time certainly had newspapers, it's not like
Yeah.
everyone in the world did,
Right.
right? So if they somehow were able to put a kibosh on it, which seems like they did, or later removed it, I don't know why they did that, but there is no information. We do have a lot of photos, however, from the time after the fact, of people standing on top of the mud and just kind of looking distressed at the street and their buildings covered in it. We got a bunch of those photos. But we don't have any We don't have any documentation. So that's the big question. Now, the whole conspiracy with the Tatari and all that kind of stuff. I know it is weird though. I mean, it is weird. Why aren't we taught about and talk about the Tartar Empire? Why? It's
I
literally
don't
the
know.
largest empire in human history. Literally.
Yep. I didn't even know it existed until I was playing uh, Crusader Kings 2 because they had a thing where you could reform it in that game.
Oh
And
yeah.
I was like, what? The what? I've never heard of that one. And then I went and looked it up, and I was like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah,
How was I never informed of this thing?
you can find
Don't know.
information if you go digging for it. I'm just saying
Yeah.
that it isn't put out there, and it is weird. I mean, when you're in school, you're taught about the Egyptians and the Greeks and the Romans and the Chinese and the Japanese, etc., and of course the
Right.
Europeans. But why aren't you taught about the Tatar? I mean, they were ridiculously powerful, dude,
Yeah. And they
and
were all
wealthy.
over.
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
It's
It's
weird.
kind of like the thing with Genghis Khan and what he was after. He was looking for Mercury.
He was,
We're not
yeah.
taught that. We're
But
just
of
taught he was
course,
a crazy warmongering warlord and wanted to conquer the world and blah blah blah.
yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, kind of, but there was a reason he wanted to conquer the world. He
There
was looking
was.
for
And of
Mercury.
course, the Tartar Empire came out of his, not he didn't do it, but later generations are the ones who created the Tartar Empire out of what he did.
Right.
But there are many old warlords that were hunting Mercury. Attila was looking for Mercury. There's
Yep.
several Indian ones, Chinese rulers looking for Mercury. I don't know. There's something there. That's a TFT. But
Yep.
I don't know if
Mercury.
there's enough information for me to do a TFT. But clearly, there's something going on with that because even Alexander was looking for Mercury.
Yep. And the crazy thing, I was talking to people the other night about this. You want to talk about a crazy fact of history, crazy reality of history. Alexander the Great, he was genuinely deserved that title. When you think about how much land that man covered with very
Oh yeah,
little
he's a badass.
comparatively, it's unmatchable in history. It's amazing what he was able to achieve through the greatest empires of his time. Like he just marched right through, and it's regardless though. One of the reasons he was out doing what he was doing is they were looking for Mercury.
He
Mercury
was.
was
Yeah.
there was something going on in the ancient world with Mercury that we have no understanding of.
Spans a couple
At least,
thousand years of time as well.
yeah, where people were just people, very powerful, capable
Obsessed
people
with
were
Mercury. Yeah.
obsessed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I don't know.
willing
And
to kill in the millions for it if need be.
well,
Like
there's a
that's
reason.
obsession.
Well, there's a reason he specifically went to India and not to Europe or Africa,
Right,
right? He went
right.
to India for a reason. But I don't know. But another conversation with Alexander is not just the amazing things he did in his lifetime, but the legacy. I mean, just mentioning one, the Ptolemy
Yeah.
dynasty. I mean,
Yep.
Jesus, dude, right?
Oh, all
So
of it. I mean, his because of his dominance, it pretty much directly led to what would eventually become the Roman, largely off of the back of his
oh
conquests.
sure, yeah,
And that, I mean, the man was, I say bad, he was only 16 when he started. It's just a life that cannot be there's very few in history that parallel it. And I don't know, I don't think he gets enough respect, even though we call him the great.
right.
Even still, the accomplishment, the competency in that young man. I mean, he was younger than me when he died, and he conquered basically most of the known world, or at least his known world.
His chunk of
Uh,
it, yeah. Yeah, no,
yeah,
he's impressive, dude. And the sad thing is, I don't think we really know the story of Alexander at all. I really
I
don't
don't
think
either.
we have any even 2% of the story. I think there's a lot more going on with that, as with many things. So when people jump to conspiracy theories like with the mud flood here and start going into crazy ideas of resets and powerful overlords and things like that, I get why they do it because there's
Yep.
clearly gigantic holes for no reason. The information has either been suppressed or removed clearly. Now, we do know that 400 years ago, during the Protestant Reformation, all across Europe, there was mammoth book burnings.
Yes.
We don't have any clue what we lost in information, and we know a lot of books were created at that time as intentional propaganda. This we do know. We just
Yeah.
don't know how widespread it was. Some people think it's the entirety of known modern history was rewritten. Others think it's less invasive. It's probably somewhere in the middle, right?
It usually is.
It usually is. But I mean, there's a lot of this nonsense, and this Mudflood one is very interesting because people
Yeah.
have been talking about this for quite a while. It just recently became popular, but this is not a new thing. However, this is clearly something, and I see you said that why what this could have just been something that happened locally. Sure, but the problem is it's widespread. It's across the whole planet. That's the problem,
Yeah.
and it happened at the same time, right? That's the problem. This picture I have still up here. Sure, that could have been some local flood or something. Absolutely, but but it doesn't apply in the greater picture.
Right.
That's what makes it an actual interesting thing that needs to be looked into.
And it's just one of those strange things that the powers that be, the people who control history, whether we like it or not, just they don't want to talk about. They want to call it a conspiracy theory and move on. And I see no benefit to anybody to do that. Like, why? Why are we pretending like this thing is not a thing when it's clearly a thing?
Yeah,
It's just
I don't
so
know.
strange. It's such a strange thing. It's such a strange one.
It is
Because it
weird.
has no real, you would think it would have no real bearing on modern politics or anything, right? There's no, what's to gain by not talking about it?
Or at
Same with
that
the
time,
Giants, or,
right?
yeah,
What was the
what's the
point?
gain by just not discussing something that clearly doesn't have much effect on the modern world, at least unless it's going to happen again, and that's why they're hiding it. Uh, the only thing I could think of, except it doesn't make sense to bury it at the time, but now, is all of the top institutions are all in on my climate change, my global warming, and we're going to end, human race is going to die off and all this nonsense, all this hyperbolic nonsense. Um, if we have record and we discuss openly actual worldwide natural disasters, which we know have happened on more than one occasion,
Yeah,
we can't. It's harder to put the blame on us, right?
right,
It's
right. Yeah. No, I
harder to
get your
blame
point.
human activity for it because
Yeah,
there's no way we could have caused this 200 years ago.
but
Like
that
what could we have done?
but that would be a modern application, and this is something that's much
Yes.
older. Yeah.
Yes.
My only baby theory that I have, and a baby theory, is at that time when this happened, the wave of revolution was going across the planet because America had its revolution, and it won against the British. And I'm going to be fair. I'm not going to be yeah America. Um, uh, Britain was busy. They were very busy with many problems across their empire, and
Yep.
they did not give us the full attention they should have. And they came back decades later trying to retake it, and they just failed. But America at that time was not powerful. It was not. I know people have this image of America today being the superpower, sure, but at that time we were not powerful, right?
Right.
And all these countries all across the world, of course, they knew what was going on. They had news and information coming. Maybe they didn't all have newspapers. They certainly had town criers, and they had ways that information was moving. And they saw this little country, this burgeoning country that was not powerful, throw off the yoke of the British Empire. And it just caused this fire revolution for decades across the world of people
Mm-hmm.
throwing off the yoke of various empires. And America set that shit off. And because that was happening so widespread across the whole planet, and it was new, burgeoning countries that were new and just they're trying to be something. And if you had such a cataclysm like this, that would make you look weak or incapable, maybe it was hushed up
Maybe.
at a later period. I don't know. I don't know. Or maybe it was this event that allowed all these countries to get out of underneath the yoke of the British and other empires. Maybe that's what caused it. Maybe the British just couldn't deal with it. They got disconnected because it was such a disaster. and then later the British, of course, still held their power. Maybe they kind of hushed everything up so that they didn't look weak, or people didn't want it to make look, oh, we only won because of a natural disaster. This is a baby theory, but that's the only thing that comes to my mind that makes me wonder why it would be no documentation. I don't know.
Could be.
I don't
It's
know.
a strange one though. It is
is weird.
an odd duck.
It is weird. But I think we should. I don't know that we need to delve deeper into this conversation because it's. I could show you photos, and we could deal with. St. Petersburg is probably one of the most interesting examples. But I think maybe if I have time, trying to prepare a presentation on the Tartar Empire and talking about that a little bit might be interesting. But I do need to run. I got to get to work. This hour later is troublesome. But whatever. Thank you all for coming in. It was a lot of fun. Tomorrow we'll talk a little bit about comic books. And yeah, thank you. Dundaro, take us out of here, man.
Let's get out of here. We will be on tomorrow, as long as Chester's schedule permits it, and it probably will.
Probably, yeah.
Other than that, I don't have much else to say. Have a good night. It's November. Time change in America. I don't know why we still do it, to be honest. I would love a good explanation, but it's stupid. But other than that, have a good night. Everybody's got to work tomorrow. That sucks.
Yeah.
I got no happiness for you. We got a president who shits his pants. I don't know. I don't know anymore.
Fair enough. Later, everybody.